Hello, MLFers, and welcome the Midlife Podcast live. Or just will you hit the mute button on the Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, is that all going? It's all going. And
Woohoo!
welcome to the Midlife Hour, which is Wednesday, and we're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube or Instagram. Uh, and welcome to everybody joining. It doesn't really hour, but we did do a podcast last week. We had such a response to that we wanted to dive in further because I think that you don't get to midlife without having the experience of grief. Before we jump into that, I just want to laugh at us. We do this often. We somehow show up with the uniform, we do this all the time. And today, I guess we both were feeling grief and we both showed up as in black.
So strange. I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about it at all. Yeah.
I didn't either. I was just, it's so cold here. Like we're having this winter weather. Like we don't have winter, we don't have seasons. And I was just feeling cold and wanted to bundle up. And then happens we jump on camera together. It's so fun.
Completely. So good.
So
funny.
I wonder, do you think like the brain? I think we're processing so much stuff when we're not even. It's like background, like you have too many apps open on your desktop. I mean, I kind of think like those programs are running credit. And so, do you think there was some of that going on too? Like knowing that we were going to have a heavier discussion today?
I have no idea. It's so fascinating. Maybe. How cool, right? Wouldn't that be amazing if it was all just happening as it should? I mean, I figure it is. But yeah, that's super cool. I think it's hilarious though that we're in tune.
Yes. But I think it's also running in the background, mindful of. It goes both ways, right?
Yes, right? That's where that mindfulness practice comes in, right? Trying to pull it in so that you are aware of some of the things.
Yes.
But it does make me laugh because I do have a lot of things open on my laptop.
On your laptop?
For sure. Yes. I always have, I'm like working on the 30 things, and there's whatever people that are very organized on their computers and they understand how computers really work. They always come in, they're like, what are you doing? Like, I'm working on a lot of things. Is that bad?
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Actually, it drives me crazy to have too many apps open. Thing with having too many emails, too many text messages. I find that all like it actually to a tizzy.
It's so funny.
Yeah. So I'm just writing hi and welcome, and remember that you can chat us without coming on, or be brave and hit call in. So that's how. If you aren't registered to be in our audience yet, you can go to the midlife.co/happy-hour and register to get the link so you can be in the audience. And we're also watching Instagram for comments and Facebook that sort of bounce forth. So, Tracy, episode, what about it do you think spoke most to people about grief?
You know, that's such an interesting question. I mean, I think it just resonated. It sounded like from responses that what's true is people, there's so many layers, as we were saying, and there's so many layers to the grief that even listening to us talking about our layers of grief and where we are and where we've been, that it pulled up more layers for them. And they didn't realize, they're out for a jog and they're listening to us and they're hysterically crying through the, like just not realizing there was still more. And I think that's so valuable is, like we say about all of our talks, it's like the more we talk about it, the more we can bring it up and out of our bodies, and the more we can feel comfortable to um, talk about the things and let the things out and keep healing, because that is what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
That each time you bring it up, it gets a little bit different. I'm not going to say easier, but it changes, right?
Yeah.
And so we got yeah.
Yeah, I was just making a joke about in the background that we both ended up wearing black today, but maybe gray too. I think it's just like current. And every once in a while just pops up to say, hey, I'm still here. I wonder, people try to offer that, well, time, you need time, it'll heal after time. And now having this experience for the first time more firsthand, um, I don't know. I don't know that time is gonna. I think it's that background programming all the time, and it's really painful. I think it's
Yeah,
the best word.
it is. And I think, there's layers of it where we're saying it's running in the background. At the beginning, it's running in the foreground.
Mm,
And the grief is, it's so overwhelming and present that, once you're through it, you can kind of speak with people. And
mm-hmm,
when someone's right at the beginning of grief, I'm like, did you find yourself like in a drugstore wondering, how did I get here and why am I here? Because that's
mm-hmm.
grief.
Yeah,
And that's, it's so overwhelming. Your brain, your heart, nothing can process it at that point. In my experience and the experiences that I've shared with others. And so, it morphs. I think this is so fascinating and wonderful. One of our MLFers sent us a beautiful email, a couple of emails yesterday, and I thought this was such an amazing thought that she said, I appreciate knowing that time is irrelevant to the loss. I wonder if it's not about healing as much as it is about adjusting, like how a
mm-hmm.
tree grows around a rock. And I was like, oh, I mean, it just makes me want to start hysterically crying just to think of that. And that is, I am going to cry. That is how it feels. Like you kind of, you just, you keep growing, but now there's this thing that's changed and it's
Right.
never the same. And yes, you can grow around it and but it's there. Right. So I thought it was so
Yes.
beautiful what she said. And thank you, Susan, for sharing. And she had a bunch of amazing things that she is selling her mom's house. Her mom just passed, and so she is dealing with grief right now. And she will come talk to us at some point, because she brought up the fact that she had a difficult relationship with her mom, and how that experience goes in reconciling. And we're fascinated in that. And Kimby and I both were like, yes, please, we'd love to hear what that experience is like. And funny enough, I feel like we were having this whole conversation about that yesterday, and then on Glennon's We Do Hard Things podcast yesterday, that's what they were talking about.
Oh,
And
you're
I was like,
kidding.
that's so no. Yeah, there's this woman. I know. I was like, how did they hear us? That's so weird. So they might be wearing black today too. Like, apparently
Well,
there's something going on.
because you don't get to a point in your life without experiencing it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. She actually helped, and she's going to come on and talk to us in a few weeks. All of those things that she does and her experiences. So this idea of it being, just totally love that too, when she said about, you're a tree just growing around this rock, it just stays there. The thing that I keep saying about losing my mother-in-law, Dave's mom, is I just have this like feeling, it's so dumb. I'm like, but she's gonna come back, right? Like she just got really, really
Yeah. Well,
sick.
you're at the beginning. You're at the beginning.
Yes. And I cannot get around the complete finality of it. I know that's so dumb.
No, it's just true.
But right?
Like I said, your brain just doesn't know how to process it. It's too big of an idea. It's too much to synthesize and figure out it really is. It takes a really long time. It takes as long as it takes,
Yeah.
you know,
We had the
especially the
experience.
first one.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a Tyler's birthday, and both Dave and I discussed afterwards um, that one, it was weird not to have her because we always do everything with all the grandparents, and like she would have been there, but also the idea that I think she was, and I think she's all these family things. It's just the most astounding experience to lose somebody you love. I don't know how you explain it because you're trying to like live through it, and you're trying to treat your feelings, worry about the people around you and how they're experiencing it, and it's like the most confusing I've been through.
Yeah. I was thinking that too. I was thinking, when my dad passed, I mean, I have my family that they have, having their own experiences and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have a spouse.
Mm.
And, what a different experience. I was thinking about that, it's your husband's mother, and what, I know you guys were very close and she's your mother-in-law and so, but like to the layers of having your own experience
Mm.
and then watching someone else have their experience and how to show up for all of that, and what was that experience like, having or what is that experience like, because it's still going on, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I can sum it up this way of my experience was the opposite of the following. So when she was very sick and dying, so we've been married almost 25 years, we've been together almost 30, and our families are close. So, my life for longer than she wasn't. And so as scared and sad and as she's dying, my mother, I'm losing one of my best friends too. So that was absolutely, and then so I can tell you that the opposite, mindful that my own mourning experience is sadness. Dave has lost. Oh, fun. Tracy, the browser is not recording me again. I think what we're doing this on the live.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so I
Weird.
think
He
so.
doesn't
To
like us being live.
question is that I just have been really been putting myself. He lost his mother, boys, and being a mother, it kind of reduces that grown human to that child again, and how scary that must, how empty that must feel. So I've just really been checking in on him a lot, and it's been really hard. He has lots of. I'm so mad. I sort of like ancillary dream about her. She wasn't in it. I'm very jealous of everybody that's had dreams about her because I think she's come to visit them.
That's a very common feeling. And I've dealt with that with a lot of clients and lots of friends that, how come all my siblings, they've all had dreams and I haven't? Like, why doesn't she come to me? And like, just breaks my heart even to say it, because it doesn't feel good. Right. And
Yeah.
there's so many layers, right? There's so many layers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that thing that your mom did, right? Like
Yeah.
when my mom, well, I was going to say like that same thing, the experience of losing my dad was, my mom losing her spouse and her life mate, and all that's,
Yeah.
someone that she'd have since she was little, forever, and how scary that is. But yes, she was very much like, I'm losing my husband, and so my brother and I kind of had the like, and we're losing our dad, like it's, and it's different, but
Mm-hmm.
it's all happening and it's all true. And, it's so delicate because everyone has a different experience of it.
I mean, I think that there are certain things that take priority, and I would say that a spouse, parent are different than. I mean, thank God I've not lost someone really close to me, but that just made me laugh. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, some people need to make things about themselves.
Yeah. Wondering in the audience, or if you're joining us on Instagram, Facebook Live, dealing with grief right now, if it's coming in waves for you. Do you get it? Just kind of curious if you want to share any of that. If you're on our live through our podcast recording, actually in the audience, you can chat and we keep that all anonymous. And we'll just read your comment in the chat. Or if you're feeling brave, you can hit that call-in button and come talk to us, which is always
And it's
fun.
not recorded anymore. So we did that on purpose. So if you feel like chatting, it's just happening while it's happening and we're not going to post it later.
I actually think that the lives and stay on the archives just to be transparent. They're not on our podcast. So they're not being distributed to Apple and Google and all of the Spotify places in the world. So if you're having trouble or you have questions, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to comment in at any time. When I came to visit you?
I feel my dad's presence almost all the time. So, I had this weird, as you guys get to know me, I'm the airy fairy, right? Touchy feely one. So
I'm the dad.
Yeah, I
get it. This can't be right. I won't do this.
Yeah. So my dad was he was sick, and he had brain cancer, and right before I could tell he was, in his home stretch, I went and bought the most expensive book, gorgeous pictures. My dad couldn't speak. He had lost his ability to speak. And so I had this feeling that I wanted to talk to him about how he was going to visit me. And I had never asked someone that before in my life, obviously. And I had heard people talking about people, and I'd heard these things and I thought, I wonder if I'm just going to ask him. And so I went and I thought, he'll just go through the book and he'll pick, and very strange thing right before someone passes that sometimes they get the ability to speak, even if they couldn't for a while. And that did happen with my dad for this one day. And so my brother got to talk to him, my mom got to talk to him, and I went in and asked him, I brought him this big book and I said, hey, I got a weird question. Do you know how you're going to visit me? And he looked at me and he just shook his head and he said, yes. And I was like, oh, oh, okay. I'm like, you do? And he said, yep. And I said, and he nodded his head. He didn't say yep. And he said, I said, okay, are you going to be an animal? And he said, nope. And he shook his head no. And I said, are you going to be like an insect? And he said, yes. And he whispered, a dragonfly. And I was like, in shock, like, wait, first of all, I thought he was going to think like, Tracy, you're my crazy kid. And why are you asking me this weird question? But it was like, he had already been thinking about it and he had it on the tip of his tongue and he spoke the word. And I was in shock pretty much. And I was like, did you say a dragonfly? And he's like, yes. And I was like, well, there's this $200 book I bought. We never opened it and we didn't even look at it, but there we were. And the night of his passing, outside of my parents' house, we were all hanging out by like the pool area and there was a dragonfly.
Of course there was.
And it was a bright orange. Orange is my favorite color. And it was a bright orange dragonfly. And obviously when you're mindful of something, you can see it more, but one big old orange dragonfly and it hung out all day. I've never seen an insect hang out all day. It hung out for hours and hours and hours. And I was like, I of course hadn't told anyone because I was sure everyone was going to think I'm the crazy one already. So I don't want to share. And I was like watching it. And we finally told my cousin. I was like, I have to tell someone. And it just turned into this thing. And he would visit people and people would say, I would tell the story to someone close to me and they'd say, he came and visited me yesterday. I knew it was him. And I was like, you did? and it was fascinating. And so, so I have that little wink that appears and it appears when I need it, which is really wonderful. and I just feel his presence. And I also have taken it upon myself to bring him in the room. So I constantly talk about him, and I talk to him, and I tell stories about him, and I feel his presence.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Tracy.
So
My,
that's a weird tidbit for everybody.
I don't think it's
If you
weird
have
at
someone,
all.
no, I think it's wonderful, and I think it's such a fun thing to play with if someone you know is passing, and
Yeah.
just to have that connection.
Oh
If
my God. It's just my kid who's on the road to Mammoth in the snow calling in the middle of our live. Do I answer it, Tracy?
Only you
I
would.
mean, what to do here? I'm just gonna have to wait a second because
To text him and see if he's okay.
yeah,
Oh my
I love real life, isn't it?
See if he's okay.
On my podcast. You okay?
Exactly.
Yes, you can watch live.
This is life, right? Life is life. Still goes on as long as everything's okay.
So fun. Oh my goodness. So we'll just wait for a little response there.
Yeah.
And yeah, awesome. That's so fun. Loving that.
So I think, take a breath.
I think it actually screwed up our live a little bit. If live and you're watching, it's because I was texting my son who was calling it. So yay.
Better.
Yeah.
So to me, yeah, some of this grief stuff, I feel like in this midlife moment, you know, when my dad passed, it was way before midlife. And so
Yeah.
I feel more equipped, right? But what I notice is when I reach out to friends or someone that I love that I haven't talked to in a while, almost every time I reach out, someone has lost someone close to them, or a family member or a parent.
Yeah.
And that's so hard. And I remember before my dad passed feeling like I didn't know how to show up for that for people. I was afraid to say the wrong thing. I felt like I just didn't have the tools. I didn't have the understanding. And I know how to show up with love, but once you go through it, you think, oh God, no one knows the right thing to say, because there really isn't much to say. And all of it sounds pretty terrible while you're going through it. And so I'm just passing that on, because I think this is a time where we are running into it a lot, and the people that we love, we want to be there for them, and we want to show up. And I think, don't stop yourself from showing up, and maybe just address that, like, I'm probably saying the wrong thing, and I just want you to know I love you. And and can't even imagine what it feels like, and just being there, and some kind of way. And I know there was times where I didn't show up because I was afraid to get in the way or make it worse, or and I think you just show up.
I actually feel now, so having gone through this experience, I feel so bad. You don't really know what it's like to lose somebody in that parent generation until it happens to you. And so we're not the first. But unfortunately, this club, I have this experience, and I feel like I've never said the right thing. And I've never been there enough or long enough. Your condolences, and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry that you move on with your life, not really recognizing that changed forever and completely intellectually, that, but you don't really understand that until you now that tree growing around that rock. So
right. And you feel alone doing that, right? Because if you're a person that was there before this, then there's that experience of the person that they lost, and that's special, right? Because anyone else from that moment on moving forward doesn't know that experience, and so they don't get to, you don't get to share in that with people. You get to share it, through words and stories and whatnot, but there is something special about those people that can relate to that person that you had that you've
Mhm.
lost, and knowing that that has lots of value.
Yeah. That's I also want to go back to your dragonfly story, not the crazy one. My grandpa, huge tennis player, tennis and very pivotal in my life. And my middle son was taking a tennis lesson. Doves fence above the court his entire lesson. There's no doubt in my mind that,
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, I love it.
I think you can pay attention that people come see you, but also it's really don't come.
Right? And sometimes you really wish they would, and they're not there.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's what I talk to them, right? Like, I feel like you have their voice and their wisdom within you, and if you speak to them and you let yourself kind of be that crazy person that lets them kind of answer,
yeah,
through you can really bring them there when you need them.
yeah.
I mean, sometimes I even sit in the other chair. I know this is a therapy that I've done with people, but sometimes I sit in one chair and I put two chairs and I sit and ask the question, and then I sit in the chair of the person and I let them answer the question and I have a
Yeah.
back and forth. And it's really fascinating. It can
Wow.
be really helpful. Mhm.
For our audience today, you can chat us, or but if you want to chat on experiences with loved ones coming back to see you, or we'd love to hear. We'd love for you to share if you're having some of these experiences too. Um, so it's been how many years since your dad passed?
17.
Yeah, and it's
Oh, all the time.
yeah. So I think about like Dave. It's only been a few months. I think if people could
Yeah.
also that's the right information for me to understand, like it just doesn't
No.
background forever.
Right. And when people say like time heals all wounds, it's like what we're, discussing and experiences is like time changes the wound.
Mm-hmm.
um, but this is a wound you keep. It's a part of who you are. It's not
Yeah.
something that goes away. You wouldn't want it to go away.
Right. When my older, he wasn't sick yet. I said to him once, I go, I just want you to see when you're dead. He felt it was like he was old enough that I could say that, and he kind of laughed.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to say ashamed, but I wasn't very brave. Anna was dying. And I'm so mad. Like, nobody wanted to tell her, like, she knew, like, it was not going to work out, right? But
Yeah.
nobody had the guts to be like, okay, look, I'm really going to miss you. This is what's, it's like everybody from like a child, even though there was nothing, it was so very obvious. Like, of course, at the end, either had gone to her brain and all that horrible stuff. But I'm just mad at myself for favor to
That's
say,
great information.
both know you're out of here and here's what you meant to me.
Yeah. I think totally. I think that's so important, and I'm so glad you shared that because I think it's huge to have the bravery. Even if, like, I remember even with my dad, I would say, "Listen, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not telling you what's happening. I'm like, but I'm going to tell you that I hope you live forever and I hope you get well. But if you don't, I want to say a bunch of things,
Mm,
and like, let's do that and let's ask all the questions and let's do all the stuff and not be afraid that, it's like, it's such a weird thing. Like, I know there was times where like, my family was looking at me like, how could you talk to them that way? Because you're going to ruin his hope, and I was
right.
like, no, I'm going to deepen our love and he's going to feel safer,
Yeah.
and I think
We all did the opposite. Like if you don't
Yeah.
talk about it, tell something might happen. It might all be, a miracle after school special. And that was really,
Yeah. Well, you can still write a note to her, say all the
yeah,
things you want to do, or sit in the 2 chairs, because
right.
that then needs to come out of you, like holding on to that needs to be a note, or it needs to be talked, because it's gonna create another rock inside of you,
Yeah,
and that's not health, that's you got to move that one out. But super
yeah,
brave of you to realize it and know it's in there, like, oh shoot, and that's probably really important to Dave too, is that he gets to do that. It's almost like maybe you do it with the family and give him a second chance. Like, what are the things would have said, what
yeah.
that you wanted to say? Let's say them all now. Let's say them.
So here's what's really time I've done that. So my
Mm,
grandma, who was healthy, she kept saying, "You to come by, I want to talk to you." And I said no, because I knew what she was doing, was up to, and I knew that she was out of here. And like, no. And that was a
yeah,
big mistake also, because again, I have to face the truth. So
right. But it robs you.
don't
Well,
be
I
me.
mean, there's so many people that do that, and it's funny because when you look at it, right, you think that you can change the outcome
Right,
by acting that way, and the only outcome you change is how it feels inside of you, right?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I experienced that in many levels in my family too, right? Like who felt they could say the things, who felt they could, like what are the things you're going to do to manipulate the situation to try to make it change, to try to get them to stay? It's like, oh
right.
shit, oh
That
shit,
didn't
you think
work.
you're in charge of that? Yeah, like
Yeah.
oof, that's a lot to take on, you know. And it's hard. I always say it's so hard because when someone's sick, I'm talking from my own experience. So I know there's a million other experiences, and we're also talking about people that loved us and we loved. So it's
Mm,
that kind of relationship. There's obviously a million other relationships, and I want to be mindful of that and just say that out loud to everybody. It's like, don't worry, we'll talk about it all, and throw us a DM or a email if it's like, yeah, this is actually my experience, and we could talk about all of it. And that's why we want to talk with you, because we want to learn from you too. uh but and now I'm gonna
well, no, just
that
um, like the ostrich strategy that I had, comment
right,
on your family as well. Um, it's not a good thing.
yeah, yeah, you just rob yourself of so many really juicy moments. And although it may take a little bravery and it may be scary at first, it's pretty remarkable what
Yeah.
happens. Again, the moment of like saying to myself, okay, just ask the question, even if you sound crazy. And it was like, I felt like every time I did that with my dad, he had an answer. And I was
Mm,
flabbergasted every time because I asked some pretty straight up questions, and I'd be like, you have an answer to that? That was
right.
okay. I was expecting you not to. And so I was so thankful that I asked them, because they were inside of him too. They were just
Yeah.
sitting there.
So
And he wasn't
amazing.
brave enough to just bring them out.
Yeah. I don't know. Weird thing, like everybody was being very polite in this very odd situation. Why do we make death so weird? It's happening,
Yeah.
all of us. You think that
Yeah. We don't want to admit
we'd be
it.
more comfortable or like, not that you're going to get comfortable with it, but just accepting of it and do it more gracefully. The fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. We can
Yeah.
definitely try harder next time, right? Be inspired to show up differently, and even just say, like, this is hard, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what I was going to say is the hard part, that also when someone's sick, allowing someone to choose their journey
Mm,
is so hard. And
mm,
I would say there were times where I felt like I'm sitting on the like dock and I have a life preserver and I think I know how to save you and I think and I want to throw it to you and you don't want it. And so I'm just watching you drown. And that is incredibly hard to do.
Yeah.
But the love is going, okay, it's your journey. Like you're either gonna grab it or you're not. Like you're gonna do it your way. And I have my choice is to love you. And so show up,
For you, right?
Yeah. And let it be. It's hard.
It's so hard. And I think it get easier. It's a dumb thing that we have of ourselves or of other people. It changes. It just changes. All right. Well, as we wrap up our happy hour live, maybe not so much today. Maybe it makes it happy because it's a common experience, and to know that you're not alone.
I feel like that's definitely happy, right? It's to be able to share and to be able to show up for each other and to be able to know that you're not alone. And even Susan in her email said like just knowing that there's people that have gone through this before me and that they're there and they're willing to talk about it and that are brave enough to open this difficult topic and talk about it and create a place where people can email or DM us and and come on and talk. It's that is happy to me.
Yeah, I agree. So before we kind of close out for the day, if you're in the audience and you have anything to comment or ask or contribute, if your experience has been different or something else, that another angle, we'd love to hear from you before we close out. And on Instagram Live, you can comment if there's anything you want to add to this difficult conversation before we end for the day. And if not, know that we'll be here live every Wednesday. You certainly can watch on YouTube, Instagram, or you can come be part of our studio audience where you can chat with us and not be seen or heard, or you can call in and talk to us directly, which we would absolutely love. Just kind of holding this space open in the hopes that we will create a community of women in the midlife talking about our all very whatever those may be. And if you have an idea for a theme or conversation you want to have, DM us. We're up for anything. So, any words, last minute thoughts?
Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging.
What's the best thing somebody said to you? Like, was there anything comforting or something that you think is comforting to say to people? I've got nothing.
Oh, I mean, to me, a hug is the best.
Yeah. All right. Consider this a hug from. Bye.
Bye.
I think we're out.